welcome to 7 Days. Could Europe be rattled by further instability after the general election in Italy? Will a new coalition government stay committed to unpopular austerity measures, or will we see a return to the Italy of old? Also in the programme, first of all, we had the six-pack and now comes the two-pack. Are you getting confused? Well, we're not talking about beer or the latest celebrity fitness DVD. Joining us to talk about the two-pack, which is the latest Commission tool to tighten the grip on member state economies and Italy's elections, is Italian Social Democrat MEP Roberto Gualtieri. Mr. Gualtieri, thank you for coming on the show. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about, but before we start our discussion, we're going to have a rapid-fire round of quick questions, where I simply ask you a round of questions, and all you have to do is answer yes or no.
OK.
OK, ready?
Ready.
OK, then, let's go. After the whole scandal surrounding Berlusconi, are you surprised that he got 30% of the vote?
No.
If you'd been outside the polling station when Berlusconi cast his vote, would you have joined the chorus of boos?
I protested with my vote.
European leaders were more in favour of the former Prime Minister Mario Monti. Are you happy with the election result?
Not.
Does it show a change in Italian politics that a comedian, a satirist, Beppe Grillo's five-star movement has burst onto the political scene in Italy?
It was a surprise, the dimension of his victory.
Now, Tupac, is it another tool for controlling member states?
It is another tool, yes.
Yes? If Tupac sees more control to the Commission, does it give the UK another reason to leave the EU?
I hope no.
Yes or no?
No, I hope no.
Are you a fan of horse meat, or have you maybe had too many beef lasagnas and don't know the difference?
No, I like horse meat, but it should be indicated in the label.
OK, well, we're out of time, and I hope you enjoyed that. Now, Mr. Gualtieri, you are a professor, you're an Italian. What do the results of the Italian election show you? I mean, obviously, at the beginning of the week, we saw stock markets reacting badly. So does this election result prove or show that maybe Italy's scored an own goal?
I think the result is linked to internal problems, but also to a bigger EU problem. That this course of austerity and also of a way of kind of technocratic economic governance, where citizens have not anymore the right to decide the economic policy line in their home country, but they have not also the right to decide at the EU level. This creates big political problems. De facto, it opens a phase of instability in national politics. So I think this is an important sign, not only for the Italians, but for all the European Union.
And so you think EU governments should ease up on their austerity measures?
I think that austerity should be not the only tool of economic policy. You need budget responsibility, but you need also investment for growth and social cohesion. This is obvious. But you need also democracy to have a real governance, economic governance at the EU level. Now,
coming to the coalition, what shapes do you actually see it taking? I mean, obviously, if we were to have a coalition of the centre-right, centre-left, I mean, that would be completely against what people have voted for. Do you see a coalition happening between the five-star movement and the centre-left with Monti as well?
It could be an option. It's a difficult one. Of course, it would take some days or weeks to check whether this possibility exists really. Bersani, the Democratic Party leader, started to explore this possibility. Now we have to see. But
can we rely on this five-star movement? Can we rely on them?
It's very difficult to know, because nobody knows those members, because they have been selected with a procedure which, with the participation of a very small number of citizens, so nobody knows them, basically. I think that even Grillo does not much of them.
OK, Mr. Gualtieri, we'll come back to our discussion, but right now we're going to take a look at the roundup of this week's news with Julie Martin.
En plein scandale de la viande de cheval, lundi et mardi, les 27 ministres de l'Agriculture se sont réunis à Bruxelles. Au cœur de leur discussion, il a évidemment été question de la traçabilité des aliments. Jeudi, c'est au Parlement que ce débat s'invitait. Les eurodéputés veulent davantage de traçabilité et des tests réalisés sur la viande tout au long de la chaîne alimentaire. Comment l'Europe peut réagir face à ce scandale? Le commissaire européen à la santé était invité à répondre à cette question. Pas de menthe ni de vanille dans les cigarettes. Il faut arrêter d'attirer les jeunes avec des saveurs douces ou des paquets attractifs. 70% des fumeurs ont commencé avant l'âge de 18 ans. Mais jouer sur la présentation ou encore la fabrication ou la vente des produits du tabac suffira-t-il à dissuader les jeunes? Telle était la question à laquelle les députés et le commissaire européen à la santé, Tonio Borg, ont tenté de répondre lundi après-midi. Alors qu'une nouvelle loi européenne est en débat, les députés avaient invité à témoigner des producteurs de tabac, des centres de recherche et associations de lutte contre le cancer. La taxe carbone imposée aux avions en suspens. Mardi matin, les députés se sont alignés sur la proposition de la Commission européenne de geler pendant un an cette taxe. Depuis début 2012, le secteur de l'aviation est entré dans le système d'échange des quotas de pollution, comme les industries. Mais cette taxe a soulevé la colère des gouvernements et des compagnies aériennes en dehors de l'Union et même des constructeurs européens. Les États-Unis, la Chine et d'autres pays ont menacé de boycotter ce système. Avec cette pause, les Européens espèrent permettre une alternative sur les émissions du secteur au niveau mondial.
You're watching 7 Days in Europe, and joining me in the studio is Roberto Gualtieri. Now, Mr. Gualtieri, we saw in this report the horse meat scandal is limping on. I mean, what's your take on it? I mean, obviously farmers are reacting very badly to this.
I think it's clear that we need more transparency in labeling and the food, and there is a problem in how we implement our rules, or maybe sometimes we need better rules. So it's a clear, the problem I think is very clear.
Okay, now coming to the two-pack, and this is something I did actually really want to ask you about. Now, we have the six-pack, now we're going to have a two-pack, and we're going to have an 8-pack, a 10-pack, a 12-pack. I mean, how many more packs do we need? It seems that the EU has so many regulations. Is this the measure that's going to be best for Europe?
This regulation, I think, is important, and the European Parliament contributed in improving it. I will explain how, but of course, even with those improvements, is only part of the solution. We need budget responsibility, we need a stronger monitoring, surveillance at the EU level, but only with stronger rules, stricter rules, we cannot run an economy and the currency. So this is clear. So this is an unbalanced governance. We have rules at the EU level, but we don't have resources at the EU level. The budget is very small, and they even want to reduce it. We don't have European own resources. We don't have possibility to make anti-cyclical policies. We make only pro-cyclical policy. We cut, and when there is a downturn, this is negative also for the reduction of debt and deficit. So it's clear. This negotiation, we started to change this line because the Parliament succeeded in having in these regulations, the new two-pack regulation, for the first time clearly said that the Commission should take into account the cycle, should allow more public investment where there is a downturn. So there is a first signal of an anti-cyclical economic policy, but it's not enough, and it's too late.
No, but let's talk about the powers the Commission's going to get under the two-pack. I mean, shouldn't we be allowing member states to have more control over what they do? I mean, you are a professor and you're also one of the negotiating team on reform of monetary reform for Parliament. Do you think maybe we're treating member states like naughty little schoolchildren?
No, I think this is part of their obligation. If we share currency, of course, we have to coordinate economic policy stronger than we did, and of course we have to have a responsible budgetary policy and the possibility to monitor, to control, and also to enforce. Because otherwise
we are saying that austerity doesn't really work.
No, but the problem is not the instrument to control the budgetary policy of member states. There are two problems. The first is democracy. Is this monitoring control made in a technocratic way, or citizens have a say both at the national and the European level, through the national parliament and through the European Parliament? And the Commission is responsible in front of the citizen. Do the citizen really elect the Commission? Also on the basis of different policies, that's what we should do.
Regulations like the two-pack?
Yeah, if it's only a technical mechanism, of course, we detach citizens from Europe. This is sure.
Okay, well, unfortunately, Mr. Gualtieri, we're going to have to leave it there. But thank you so much for joining us on 7 Days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, you're watching 7 Days. Stay with us. Nice to meet you. The uprising in Syria is now 2 years old with no end to the conflict. The UN estimates over 70,000 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands have fled the violence and bloodshed to neighbouring countries. Here in the EU, a delegation of MEPs from Parliament's Civil Liberties Committee went to Jordan to visit the Austerity refugee camp and registration centres on the Syria-Jordan border. And joining us now is one of those very MEPs, the Green Party's Dutch MEP, Judith Sargentini. Ms. Sargentini, a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, we've got lots to discuss, but first of all, we're going to have a little game where I'll ask you a rapid-fire round of questions, and all you have to do is answer yes or no.
That's always the tricky part, eh?
That's true, but are you ready?
Sure.
OK, then let's go. Do you see what is essentially a war in Syria ending?
No.
Did it make you feel sad or cry when you got there?
No.
Are you now doing something more to help the people of Syria?
Yes.
Is the international community maybe doing enough?
No.
Do you think possibly that the case is that they've burnt their fingers by going into so many different countries that now they simply don't want to do too much?
No.
Should the Muslim world be helping the people of Syria more?
Yes.
Are we maybe forgetting about the refugees in Lebanon?
Yes.
Is donor fatigue an issue?
No.
Do you think maybe that there's a huge dislike of the Bashar al-Assad regime and that maybe could be a problem or reason for donor fatigue?
No.
Are you in favour of revolution?
Yes.
OK, well, thank you for your honesty. Now we've run out of time, but thank you very much. Well, we have a report by one of our reporters, Ug Wenstock. Now, he went to the Turkish border to see the refugee crisis over there, and we're going to see that report in a short while. But first of all, I want to talk about your experience. How did you feel the first moment when you got there?
You just asked me whether I was sad or cried when I was there. I didn't cry, but of course I was sad. It's always horrific to see 70,000 people in a tent camp, and every night 3,000 new refugees arrive. And they walked for days, maybe. And they left home and a more or less organized life or a normal middle-class life, and now they're living in tents in Jordan, no job, no security, and they have to wait for people to give them food. And that just makes you very sad.
Very true. Well, we'll come back to our discussion, but first of all, we're going to take a look at that report by Ug Wenstock on the ground realities of life at camp for Syrian refugees in Turkey.
Ghazi El Ras est un pharmacien d'origine syrienne installé en Belgique depuis plus de 40 ans. Sa vie a basculé il y a 2 ans à cause de la guerre civile qui déchire son pays natal. Ghazi est devenu un maillon essentiel d'un réseau d'aide aux populations syriennes. Sa mission est de leur faire parvenir médicaments et matériel médical. Entre 2 clients, il nous emmène dans sa réserve. C'est ici qu'il entrepose tout le matériel qu'il a réussi à collecter. Médicaments, chaises roulantes, couvertures, nourriture, tout est utile. Quelles sont les conditions d'hospitalisation en Syrie à l'heure actuelle?
À l'heure actuelle, les conditions sont très minimes. C'est très préliminaire. Il n'y a pas des choses confortables ou des choses un peu évoluées. On va quelquefois même faire un pansement pour quelqu'un avec un sac en plastique.
Le plus grand défi de notre pharmacien est d'arriver à faire livrer tout son matériel au cœur même de la Syrie dont le régime cherche à contrôler l'aide humanitaire. La nuit est désormais tombée sur Bruxelles. 2 ambulances achetées d'occasion sont stationnées devant la pharmacie. Elles vont être chargées de dizaines de caisses de médicaments. Un long voyage attend les chauffeurs. Leur périple sera de plus de 3000 km. Il doit les amener à la frontière turco-syrienne. Nous avons suivi le même parcours que les ambulances. Derrière ces montagnes se trouve la Syrie. Les combats qui se déroulent dans ce pays ont fait plus de 70 000 morts et ont jeté sur les routes plusieurs centaines de milliers de personnes. Les déplacés tentent de trouver refuge dans les pays limitrophes. Par des chemins de traverse, notre guide nous montre les moins chanceux. Entre 6 et 8 000 réfugiés vivent dans ce camp de fortune en Syrie. Il est adossé à la frontière turque. Pour se rendre compte de la tragédie qui se joue, il suffit de se déplacer de quelques kilomètres dans cet hôpital tenu par des médecins syriens en Turquie. On y soigne des civils et des combattants de l'armée libre syrienne. Il y a 2 à 3 patients par chambre, des cas souvent dramatiques.
2 of them have paraplegia by snipers. They targeted by snipers and their spinal cord. They have CSI, so they can't walk now.
L'Union européenne a déjà fourni plus de 417 millions d'euros d'aide pour les réfugiés syriens. Mais Ghazi déplore que l'aide humanitaire n'arrive qu'au compte-gouttes à l'intérieur de la Syrie. La seule note d'espoir que Ghazi perçoit, ce sont ses enfants qui peuvent désormais s'exprimer librement sans risquer leur vie.
You're watching 7 Days in Europe, and with me is MEP Judith Sargentini, who, as we said, has recently returned from an MEP delegation visit to a Syrian refugee camp on the border with Jordan. Now, can you see life ever returning to normal in Syria? Do you see maybe a resolution to the political situation over there?
This is the most difficult question. We all would like to see Assad go. And whether he ends up in a bounty island under a coconut tree, enjoying his old day, or whether he ends up like Gaddafi, I don't know, but he has to go. And the longer it takes, the more insecure the situation becomes, the more various, they call themselves the Free Syrian Army, but it's all different factions and all have different ideas of the future of Syria. Should it be secular? Should it be more Islamist? And
can I just ask you one thing?
Yes.
Do you think that, are you in favour of an attack?
No, nobody is right now.
You don't think that the international community should be taking such evasive action?
Well, if you compare it to Libya, where we had the no-fly zone, that was a desert with lots of, there were cities, but in between there was nothing. This is a quite densely populated area. And if you do an attack in Syria, what's the consequence for the countries surrounded? It's the Middle East. It is very inflammable. And this is, of course, why not an attack has taken place yet. Next to it, there's no UN Security Council clearing for this. We would not like...
Isn't that the real problem?
Yes, of course, that's a huge problem, because otherwise you could, instead of an attack, you could maybe send in blue helmets. But now you risk making it from a civil war into a full-fledged war between countries, which is, of course, the sad part, because the Syrian refugees we spoke said, we don't want to speak about more blankets and food and education for our kids and how you can improve our lives here in Jordan. We want to talk about how you are going to conquer Assad so
and
we
help
can
them go home.
And we can go home. And we do not have a proper answer to that.
But what more are you personally going to do? I mean, you visited the refugee camps now. What more are you going to do? What more can the EU do?
What we have to do is keep paying the UNHCR to make sure that these refugees have a place where they are safe and well treated, and also support the Jordan government, as well as the Lebanese government and the Turks, because they are flooded by refugees while they're also in the middle of an economic crisis. And we saw riots in the camps last week because people feel insecure, and that is something the Jordan government has to deal with. They can only deal with it if they keep their own people happy, which means that the only thing we can do right now is financially support them.
And the hope is that, of course, that we keep the borders open.
Exactly, and this is what the Jordans tell us. The government tells us that they think of closing the border, which is a threat to us, because if you do that, the situation will be more aggressive. I don't think they will, because if they say we are going to close the border, they will see a massive influx of people that thought they could still stay for a little while in Syria and then later on go to Jordan, but they will then all come at the same time. You can't close off such a big border.
Okay, well, Ms. Sargentini, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming on the programme and talking to us about the refugee crisis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Well, you've been watching 7 Days in Europe with me, Mariam Zaidi. Take care and goodbye.